1. Context of post-war Europe. As the dust settled after World War II, Europe faced a daunting landscape of destruction, economic collapse, and a refugee crisis. The continent was not only in dire need of reconstruction, but also vulnerable to the ideological competition between the United States and the Soviet Union. 2. Origins of the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan, named after U.S. Secretary of State George C. Marshall, was introduced in 1947 as a comprehensive aid program. The documentary would likely delve into Marshall's motivations, emphasizing the need for economic stability in Europe to prevent the spread of communism and Soviet influence. 3. Implementation and goals. Documenting the implementation of the Marshall Plan involves exploring the logistical challenges, diplomatic negotiations, and the cooperation required to disperse aid to war-torn countries. The goals of the plan included rebuilding infrastructure, stabilizing currencies, and fostering economic recovery to create a foundation for political stability. 4. Response from European nations. A documentary on the Marshall Plan would showcase the reactions of European nations to the generous aid offered by the United States. It would highlight the conditions attached to the assistance, emphasizing the need for economic cooperation and the establishment of a unified response to Soviet expansionism. 5. Impact on economic recovery. The Marshall Plan played a pivotal role in the economic recovery of Western European nations. The documentary could illustrate success stories of revitalized industries, improved infrastructure, and the overall economic resurgence that laid the groundwork for the European Economic Community (EC). 6. Political and social transformation. Beyond economic recovery, the Marshall Plan influenced political and social dynamics in participating nations. The documentary might explore how the aid program contributed to the stabilization of governments, the growth of democratic institutions, and the strengthening of ties between the United States and its European allies. 7. Soviet response and division of Europe. As the Marshall Plan aimed to prevent the spread of communism, the documentary would likely address the Soviet response. The Soviet Union, viewing the plan as a threat to its influence, established the Molotov Plan in response, deepening the ideological and geopolitical divide in post-war Europe. 8. Legacy of the Marshall Plan. The documentary would reflect on the long-term consequences of the Marshall Plan. The economic recovery and stabilization it fostered contributed to the formation of a strong transatlantic alliance. The legacy of the plan also extended to the establishment of institutions like the European Union, which aimed to prevent future conflicts on the continent. 9. Critiques and controversies. Examining critiques and controversies surrounding the Marshall Plan adds depth to the documentary. Some critics argue that the plan disproportionately benefited American business interests, while others question its impact on exacerbating East-West tensions. 10. The Marshall Plan in the Cold War narrative. The documentary would conclude by placing the Marshall Plan within the broader context of the Cold War narrative. Its role as an economic and diplomatic tool in the ideological struggle between the United States and the Soviet Union shaped the contours of post-war global politics. Conclusion. The Marshall Plan, as explored through the lens of a Cold War documentary, provides a compelling narrative of post-war recovery, geopolitical maneuvering, and the complex interplay between economic aid and ideological competition. Understanding the multifaceted impact of the Marshall Plan enriches our comprehension of the early Cold War era and its enduring repercussions on the global stage.